Hello and welcome to the Geek Show, and we're with Soho Horror again to talk about one of the movies that played at the recent Soho Horror event. Today we're with Heston Horwin, one of the creators behind and the Misadventures of Vince. Have I got the right way around? Yes, Vince and Hick.
Yep, there you
I don't want to do the
go.
faux pas of doing it the wrong way around. How are you this afternoon? I guess it'll be
Fantastic.
over.
Great, Rob. Thank you very much for having me on the show. I'm very, very honored and excited to be talking with you and to have gotten the film and the UK audiences as well. It's an
Oh,
audience
cheers.
group that's near and dear to my heart.
Oh, well, we'll get into that, I assume, later. But I think the question is first and foremost, it's a horror festival, and the the Misadventures of Vince and Hick doesn't sound very horror. So what is it exactly?
You're correct. The Misadventures of Vincent Hick is not a horror genre, but it is a blend of genre. The film is really just this gritty, fuel injected buddy action comedy that is utilizing comic book elements to tell the story and all kinds of other conventions that I feel like we used to see in 90s action adventure movies that have fallen by the wayside over the years. I think that
Hmm.
genre has fallen out of favor uh, over those period of time in the 2000s where I think it wasn't as chic or cool to do fun, um, lighter rides of movies. And I feel like that genre is starting to come back, which is really
Yeah,
exciting and great. And
it is.
the the times that we've been in mandates that we have movies that are fun again and are going to be a ride and something, especially for me as a nerd and as a geek, happy to be on the Geek Show. This was a movie that for me, I was like, I would want to see this in the theaters. I'm a huge fan of Scott Pilgrim versus the World. It's my favorite movie of all time. Um, Edgar Wright, the smooth, flashy, the video game, the comic book conventions, all kind of blending together. And in our film, we definitely utilize a lot of the comic book aspects, but we
Hmm.
also have elements of Acme and elements of Robert Rodriguez and Tarantino and early Coen brothers and the desert, and it's pulpy and it's violent and it's funny and it's over the top. So films like Midnight Run, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, Blues Brothers, these were
Yeah.
really massive influences on the script. So that's my long-winded answer to your question.
Yeah. I mean, thank you for saying that because I felt like it was one of those things. It felt so familiar, but it was one of those moments where I thought, when did they stop making movies like this? It was just they were there, and you don't really notice something until it comes back. If that makes
Mhm.
sense.
Absolutely. I'm honored that you felt that way. That's great. That's what we want.
Yes. So the genesis of the idea, because I understand it started as a web comic, so it's had a couple of sort of no web series, I should say.
Yeah.
It started off as a couple of phases, I guess. So going back to the very beginning, I guess, before it
Ab-
became a movie, um,
Yes.
what's its genesis? I guess.
So the genesis of Vincent Hick goes back to 2020. Me and my best friends, Trevor Stevens and Chase Cargill. It was at the height of quarantine. Everything was shut down. Chase and me lived together. So we were roommates and we were quarantined together. And Trevor and the two of us were desperate to just get out of the apartment and go film something. We
Hmm.
all went to film school together. We had been making movies with each other since we were 18, 19, 20 years old. So it's something that we just needed to do for our sanity. Um,
Yes.
so then we were deciding exactly what it was that we wanted to make. Me and Chase are both actors. Chase plays Hick in The Misadventures of Vincent Hick. I play Vince. Trevor is our director. We wanted to tackle characters that were unfamiliar to us and to our arsenal. So both me and Chase are actors, and I usually play, um, ironically enough, even though my training is all comedic, I found myself playing the very grounded, sort of, cap down, um, man of few words, very simple kinds of characters. My first feature film, which Trevor Stevens, the same director, directed as well, his
Hmm.
directorial debut, and my acting debut. That character compared to Vince and Vincent Hick could not be more opposite. So following that trail, Trevor was like, I really want to see you play a sleazy, like, car salesman type guy. Just like an absolute silver-tongued, untrustworthy schmuckhead. So immediately I was like, great, that sounds like a ton of fun. Let's do it. And then for Chase, he traditionally played these very big, bombastic characters. He has a theater background. He's the loudest guy you'll ever meet, and I say that with love. But yeah, so he tended to play these very over the top, very powerful types of characters, and so
Hmm.
the idea there was to let Chase play someone that was pulled back, that was very, very subtle, man, a few words, and the strength is all underneath, as opposed to the external type of energy.
Yeah.
So it started with that, and then we came up with something very simple that we could shoot out in the desert, Palm Springs, which was a couple-hour drive from Los Angeles, where we were. So we rented a trailer and went out there, and we shot this kind of Nick at Night energy,
Okay.
old kind of, you know, just like Robert Rodriguez-y, Tarantino, like the early stuff. Kind of a Western. So I think like the Genesis, it was leaning into its Western conventions. We shot it all black and white because we did not have any money. We had no lights, and we were shooting in the desert, so the sun is very overwhelming. Um, so we kind of wanted to create this sort of timeless feeling world. And from that, our peers kept telling us, like, hey guys, this is like one of the best things you've ever done. You need to keep following this trail. This is something unique. These characters are really fun. Me and Chase have been working together for years. Me and Trevor have been working together for years. The three of us have been longtime friends, so we had all this chemistry naturally baked in. Um, and so I was basically really like hearing what my friends were saying to me, and I decided I'm going to pen a script. I'm going to write the feature script. I feel very familiar with these characters, and then it became, how do we find the money to make this feature film? And then as it happened, I had been hit by a van walking to my car in a parking lot back in 2018, summer of 2018. And it was a company painter's van. And it took 4 years for that injury settlement money to finally come into my account. So hit in 2018, genesis of Vince and Hick in 2020. The feature script is written and ready to go in 2022. January of 2022, we're looking for money. One day I was in rehearsal. Bam, the money came through into my account from that injury settlement. And I texted my friends. I said, boys, I'm greenlighting our film. Let's go make the Misadventures of Vince and Hick. And we were on set that May.
It's a horrible sense of fate, but it's
Yeah.
it's good at the end of the day. You kind of completely won one of my questions because I was going to say, how did Travis become your director? But if you're all friends,
Yeah.
was there ever? Well, let's just avoid that
I have a
completely.
fun story. So I was an actor in college, but I was taking film production classes.
Hmm.
And because I wanted to learn the ins and outs of filmmaking, I was more interested than just performance. That's my number one love, and I think it will be always. But I was so fascinated by the other aspects of filmmaking. So I'm in this class with a bunch of other directors and producers, and in the class, essentially, it was making a short film. So we're taking turns reading our scripts in the class and whatnot. And Trevor's script comes up, and I volunteer to read in the class. And I'm getting a bunch of laughs, and everyone's loving it, and da 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 da. And I approached Trevor after the class. I was like, "Hey, man, I know that this is like a director's class, but I'm actually an actor. Could I audition for your short film?" And he was like, "Oh, I'm very aware that you're an actor. I see you do improv shows all the time. Like, you're also like," and we immediately fell in love. And I acted as one of his lead actors in every single one of his college projects from then on. Um, and then his first feature film, which he got funded by a small production company right out the gate, right out of college. We were 24 years old. Um, he fought tooth and nail to keep me in the leading role of that movie, and thank God I was able to stay. And so we did that feature called Rock Steady Row, and that won the Slam Dance Film Festival, the Grand Jury Prize, and the Audience Awards in 2018. And then from then on, it was like it's been a roller
Yeah,
coaster.
great festival, Slam Dance, do great things for indie cinema,
Yes.
and I love stories like that as well. It's just a group of friends just making things together. It's wonderful, really.
It's what I'm all about. It's been one of the greatest gifts of my lifetime is just being able to make movies with my best friends.
Yeah, you hear so many words. You hear so many stories of just horror stories, but it's just more and more. I'm just seeing these stories of just groups of friends thinking, you know what, we're going to pick up a camera, we're going to do this stuff. We're not going to wait for a sort of the big studio man. I'm talking in sort of abstract terms here. So,
Yes.
to say yes, you just you and your friends. It's great. It's inspirational stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, appreciate that. And while I can never recommend getting hit by a car to fund your feature,
Oh
what I can
no.
say is all the movies that I've been a part of have had different stories and different ways and different methods of how they've gotten their funding. Um, if you really are committed and dedicated to a concept and to a movie that you know in your gut and in your heart of hearts, it's got to be made. Things just seem to happen the way that they need to happen. And it's been so bizarre and cool to witness how all the projects I've been a part of have like stumbled their way into production. So really, if you have
Yeah.
the vision and you have the group and the talent and the friendship and all that, like everything else really does seem to fall into place one way or another.
Fate is a weird mistress, I guess.
Yes. Yes, she is.
Um, Going back to, I mean, the poster in particular, I have to have this pointed out by a friend. He said
Yes.
the poster has a lot of Marvel references in.
Yes.
Um, is that in the entire production, really? That sort of reference to comic book history and style? I mean, obviously,
Yeah.
the style, you've got all the sort of the comic book panels, but
Right.
was that where it all came from?
That's a
Your love of
very
Marvel
astute.
comics?
Yes, it's an astute observation. So there's a specific comic, I forget the exact issue, but it is X-Men and it's got Logan on the cover. Um, and I don't think it's Wolverine. I think it's Logan specifically. And he's got a spotlight on him and he's running away from, the authorities, whatever it is. And our dear friend, Tony Donnelly, is the artist that we used for both our poster and the art that we used in the film for expositional sequences. Um, and Tony, hilariously enough, also lived in the same apartment complex as me and Chase during
Wow.
2020 during lockdown. So we're all happened to be in this one apartment building, and yeah, he's become one of our best friends. So Trevor Stevens, our director, he is a huge comic book fan, specifically Marvel, Spider-Man, X-Men. Um, uh, Long Shot, which is a little bit more niche, but Long Shot is a fave of his. And so he gave Tony, who is a career journeyman graphic novel artist. He's been doing this for decades. He's like the best that I've ever met personally. I've been so fortunate to work with him. And so Trevor gave him some references to create this cover for us, this poster. Tony knocked it out of the park. And then from that, we started evolving into realizing like, hey, we could use Tony's art and utilize that to tell the story in certain sections of the film, flashbacks, fantasy sequences, you name it. And so that's exactly what we did. And we're big video game fans. So The Witcher 3, some of those
Wonderful.
cinematics, the very beginning of Witcher 3, those slow, again, it's hand drawn, but it's slow 3-dimensional moving through the image. And you have the narration and you have the storytelling happening over that art. So that was a big inspiration for us. Um, and Tony drew us a hell of a comic book essentially, and we had some really talented artists be able to bring that to life 3-dimensionally as well. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's what makes the movie stand apart, I think, from the rest, in my opinion.
I know it's a low budget, but was there ever the desire to try and do some of those sequences in camera? So,
Uh, Funny question. So there were in certain sequences going into production that we were going to try to do, namely, our protagonist Hick starts in prison. The beginning of the movie is him getting released from prison. He's trying to reconnect with his estranged daughter. He's writing letters to her, and he's sort of making up all these fantasy stories to avoid telling his kid that he has in fact been in prison. That's where he's been this whole time. So he's telling her this
Yes.
fantastical kind of stuff. The fantasy sequences was always meant to be comic book. We were never going to try to shoot Hick in a scuba diving suit 20,000 leagues under the sea with a giant alien
The
squid.
budget would jump up quite a bit, I assume.
Correct. Yeah, correct. So that was never in the cards. However, there were certain scenes of him in prison at the beginning of the film that we were initially going to film, but couldn't get a prison location feasibly. And so we were like, okay, let's open it up in the comic book panels that are going to show him in prison. And it ended up working out even better because it really established and set the tone of we're entering a comic book, and that is the story that's going to unfold in front of us. And then it transitions to live action.
It's not the only transition either. One that I didn't quite understand at the beginning. It starts off black and white,
Yes.
and your character rocks up in I think it's a pawn shop,
Yes.
full of life. What
Yep.
was the motivation behind that? Really, that sort of mixing of color and black and white in that way.
Totally. So that was a decision that came very late in the game. So we shot this movie the summer of 2022. That decision to blend the color and the black and white came, I want to say, May of this year, 2025. So
Wow.
initially,
Yeah.
when we shot the feature, it was all supposed to be black and white, like we did the shorts. Because again, I did have this money from the injury settlement, but it's a pretty big concept and a lot of characters, as you saw.
Hmm.
So again, not having a lot of money for lights and fancy toys and whatnot, we're like, we're going to be in the desert. Let's shoot this black and white. It'll stay true to the shorts. Again, it gives this like timeless Nick at Night energy to it. But then we showed it to some trusted colleagues, and we kept getting repeated feedback that was like, I think this should be in color. And the reasoning was the characters are so larger than life. The costumes, even in black and white, you can tell are very colorful. The terrain, the setting is super colorful with the adobe and the clay and the brick like buildings and all this stuff. So then we tried it all in color. But that also didn't quite seem right because, as I'm sure you can imagine, when you go shoot a film for black and white, there are certain things you're not going to worry about lighting wise because you're in
Oh,
black and white. And then you
true.
switch it to color, and then all of a sudden you're like, ooh, that looks rough. So I needed a colorist doctor. And that came in the form of a dear friend, Brian Smaller, and he works for Company 3 here in Los Angeles. He is a 9-time Emmy award-winning colorist. He went to college with us. He has blown all of us out of the water in terms of trophies, accolades, and money. And to be honest, I was like, I don't even know if we can get him anymore. He colored Rocksteady Row, our first feature, and then ever since then, he's been winning Emmys, which is
Yeah.
phenomenal for him. So I, in my brash swing for the fences nature, I decided I'm going to call Company 3 and I'm going to beg. I'm going to beg them to let Ryan Smaller color my film because I need him. He is the only person that is going to be able to crack this egg for me. And so I went in, I took a swing, and the stars aligned. Lady Fate looked favorably upon me. He agreed to do it. And he came up with the brilliant idea of he was like, look, I've seen it both. I think it might be cool to bookend your film with black and white, and then the meat of the film is in color. And I was like, okay, interesting. So then we talked about that with Trevor, our director, and then Trevor, being the genius that he is, he was like, well, we can't just randomly have it be black and white and then go to color and back to black and white. Let's make this character motivated. Let's make this motivated by the story, and let's enrich the world if we're going to utilize that choice. And so Trevor came up with the idea of Hick is down on his luck. He's just got out of prison. He doesn't have a relationship with his daughter. He doesn't have money. He can't get a job. His life and his world is bleak and is lonely, and that is very clearly displayed in black and white.
Mm.
Vince comes into his life in full color. almost like an annoying fly. Like when you see Vince in color in this like black and white landscape, it clashes, and you're like, "What? What is going on?" And also, Vince's personality clashes with Hicks. And so once they collide for the first time in the beginning of the film, during a little scuffle on the side of the road, I won't, spoil too much because everyone will need to see it. But when Vince and Hick actually physically collide during their physical fight, then Vince's color, sort of like the page master, then bleeds into Hick's world, and then Hick is stuck with Vince, and he has been pulled officially into this world of crazy misadventures. And then obviously we'll see in the film their paths will diverge. I won't say why or how, but their paths may diverge. And then we see the color that Vince brings to Hick's world bleed back out. So that was how that
Yeah.
came to be.
I mean, it was a thing I wanted to bring up because it sounds so pointless to a lot of people, I imagine, compliment a movie for its colorists, but it's so vivid and saturated. You see so many movies that are sort of like dull and muted. When you see
Right.
something which is genuinely full of life and color, I think you need to really celebrate it. I think and draw attention to it.
I love that you picked that up. And that is why Brian Smaller is credited in our opening credits. That guy is an absolute baller, and he really elevated the film.
Yes, I think another thing that elevated it is your costume design
Hmm.
or your costume department, or however you want to word it. Because there's a few characters in particular,
Hmm.
um, including one which has the best name for a dog, which is actually the real name for the dog, Dracula.
Yes.
So how did these characters come together? Was it costume? How did they come together in the presentation as the costume on screen? I guess really,
Sure.
it's kind
So
of
that
hard
is,
to yeah.
yeah. That's Kat Elgarista. She was our costume department head. She's phenomenal. I've worked with her before. Um, so it was a mix. In our original web series, you'll see that Vince and Hick's wardrobe is kind of, it's established. Um, and Kat did a really good job of like, I don't want to mess with the formula too much. I just want to enhance it. So Vince's Chuck Converse were swapped out for ostrich skin boots. And, Hick's cowhide jacket became a little more cowboy looking, which is great. Um, and then we actually have a couple of characters who wardrobed themselves, which I'm so grateful that Kat was as flexible as she was, and willing to just kind of let these characters explore what that would look like for them. And that is Boots, played by Logan Huffman, who's a dear friend, wonderful talent. And then Dimitri Delgado, played by Chris Kleckner, another dear friend of mine that I met doing the Groundlings and comedy here in Los Angeles. They dressed themselves. They got their own costume pieces, their own makeup, their own prosthetics, like everything they did themselves, because both of these guys are absolute maniacs when it comes to commitment to their craft, and that is top to bottom, head to toe, inside and out. So Kat let them kind of just run run with the wind, and I'm glad that she did because they delivered it for their particular characters.
Oh yeah, I mean, absolutely captures what you were saying earlier about the Robert Rodriguez vibe. One of them in particular looks like he crawled out of which one is it now?
Blood
Like
Simple or something.
really early Robert Rodriguez movies.
Sure.
With his cowskin, well, the whole cowboy motif and his
Yep.
guns and being a little bit of a psychopath of a character. He really
Right.
captures that in the costume, I think, which is it's a risk, but it's brilliant that you have that sort of relationship that you can trust those actors to really find that spirit of the people on page. Really,
Absolutely. Yeah. When you're doing indies, you have to find things like that and hidden talents, and different, pun intended, hats that people can wear,
hmm.
because it's just from an economical standpoint, it's so important and necessary. And also, it's like, that's like the fun, right? You're not going to be able to dress yourself on a studio production like that. Like, you're not going to be able to have the freedoms that you will on an indie production anywhere else. So that's like one of the big benefits I think in indie filmmaking that people really need to lean into.
Yeah, I imagine it's just for a lot of productions, it's going into a charity shop, as they call them in the UK, or what's the term in America?
Goodwill.
Uh, Something like that, yeah, and just
Yeah.
rubbing your hands together and saying, "Let's get nuts." And I think
Oh, sure.
it worked really well for your movie. I have to say, and I also have to say, you've really preempted a lot of my questions. You've kept me on my
Great.
toes. And the
Also, if
answer is
anything, it's
basically
popping up
my
too,
friends. Your
we'll
friends of
riff.
every you've passed cross paths with everybody on the movie, and I think that again, that's just going back to what we were saying earlier. It's
Yeah.
just the wonderful sense of community where you are as well in Los Angeles. It really allows things like this to come to life. But we're talking about its festival run in
Yes.
particular, Soho Horror. So, how
Hmm.
does it feel to have it play in the capital of England? An event with this sort of stature, really.
It's awesome. So our first feature, Rocksteady Row, played at the Soho Horror Fest. Rocksteady Row had a little bit more horror conventions being used than this one. Um, Obviously, I would have loved to have played in person so I could come to London and see Mitch in person. But the fact that our movie was as different as it was from the rest of the slate, and there's nothing horror about it, and the fact that Mitch wanted to champion this and put it in the virtual program, I'm so grateful and appreciative, and it feels awesome to come back as an alumni of the festival. One of these days, I hope to be there in person myself because I'm sure it's an absolute riot, an absolute blast. So my next film will be horror, I'm sure. Um, but yeah, the festival run's been really incredible, man. It was tough. So those first 2 years when we were figuring out what this movie was going to
Mm.
be, we didn't know what the color was going to be. We didn't know how many of the on-screen motion graphics that you see that are kind of like Scott Pilgrim, Acme,
Yeah,
those elements. We were experimenting with, using a lot, using very few, using none, all this stuff. All the while, I was submitting this movie to every festival you can imagine, small, medium, and large, and I got easily over 100 rejections, and that was over the span of like a full calendar year, and then some change, to be honest. So it was like to go from our first feature, which was this festival darling, winning Slam Dance, touring the world, getting in everywhere that we wanted, really. Um, to this experience where I was like, what? Like, it's the same team. Like, the talent didn't go anywhere. This movie I'm the most proud of anything I've ever done in my whole life. So where is the disconnect? So I I had to do a lot of introspective, just work on myself, and ultimately what it came down to was, hey, I love film festivals so much, but if this is not meant to be a festival darling or whatnot, so be it. I will still find this movie's audience. That is my prime directive as the producer and like the father of this film. And just trusting that if I love this and I'm the nerd filmmaker guy that we've talked about, like there's
yeah,
other people like me that will like it. Um, but nonetheless, I was like, let's just continue working on this thing. Maybe this is feedback that needs to be listened to. And so after all these rejections and just pulling my hair out and not understanding, like, what do I freaking do? I threw a Hail Mary, and I happened to be in London, actually. This was
okay,
Christmas of 2024. So last year. I'm in London. I'm jet lagged. I am not able to sleep in my hotel. I'm in Soho, London, actually, this is all very prophetic and
yeah,
again, Lady Fate. So I'm in Soho, London, where the Soho Horror Festival takes place, and I can't sleep. And I think to myself, I feel like I just need to get some feedback from people that don't know me, because the people that do know me are telling me this is great. They're affirming all of the things I want to hear, but something's not clicking here. So I go on the filmmakers subreddit and I explain my situation, and I get 8, maybe 10 different people from around the globe that commented on my post, and they said, "This sounds like something down my alley. I'd love to just like give it a watch if you want to send me a private link, and I'll just give you my unfiltered feedback." And I was like, "Great." So I sent it to people in Australia, UK, United States, Spain, I think. Like I can't, like all over the globe. It was about 8 to 10 people. Really, really good feedback. The most consistent thing that I heard was, your edit doesn't work. And so it dawned on me again in the indie DIY spirit. And this is to go back to what I was saying earlier about like lean into like how many different hats you can wear because the economy of it all is necessary. This is
Yeah.
the this is how it's a double-edged sword. I think me and Trevor were in an effort to save money. We're like, we'll edit the film, even though that's not our superpower. And it was competent, but it was not clicking. So one of my dear friends, Almog, Almog, he's also a director, is the most talented editor that I know. And when I got that feedback, I talked to Trevor. I said, how do you feel about me reaching out to Almog? And Trevor said, 100%, let's do it. I hired Almog that January. He was in the cutting room. He did a complete re-edit, top to bottom, and had it to us by, I think, that March. And then film festival acceptances started trickling through. We premiered it in Chattanooga, Tennessee at the Chattanooga Film Festival, which is also traditionally like a horror genre festival, but we're an alumni there. Rock City Road played there. They took good care of us. We knew that we would be welcome there. So we premiered it there. And then more festivals started accepting us. And I'm like so honored and proud to say every single festival that we've played at in person has won an award of some kind, which feels so gratifying and such a like relief after being with this movie in post-production for 3.5 years, not being able to get in anywhere, my man. And finally for it to start opening and to see the floodgates parting, I'm like, oh, just had to stick with it, man. So the combination of Almog re-editing that entire film, Brian Smaller coming in with the phenomenal inspired choice of the black and white and the color, those two elements came in late in the game this year, and they completely reshaped the entire feature's trajectory.
I mean, it's just the faith in the movie as well. That's really wonderful because the film festival circuit is very harsh.
For sure.
It's very harsh. I mean, I'm experiencing that myself in my first little baby steps, but
Yep.
yeah. Leading off that, I guess it is really something that there's a value in. How would I word this? The palate cleanser.
Mm-hmm.
Are you
Yep.
okay with that role as a film festival? I mean, you're going to a horror festival and you're this. I'd word it sort of a movie you'd find on Tubi and you'd never heard of it before, and you think that was fun. I really
Yeah.
enjoyed that.
Yeah.
But then there's all the horror stuff around it. Do you think there's a value in it being the palate cleanser for a lot of these events?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of the horror festivals in general call themselves genre festivals, even though a lot of them predominantly program horror. So I do think it's important, and I think it's been great, and it's been a way for us to stand out, like you're saying, as the palate cleanser, to be this sort of like wacky comic book Robert Rodriguez crime comedy, if you will. And to put that in the middle of a bunch of horror films and it's also like there's levity, it's over the top, it has like the Blues Brothers Midnight Run kind of like slapsticky buddy, wink 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 whatever.
Yeah,
So yeah, I think you're 100% right. I think we've been able to pleasantly surprise a lot of people that have come out to these film festivals expecting 100% horror.
yeah. There's a great value in that, I think. As far as what your path for the movie is going forward, is there any other events coming up for it?
So I'm really pumped about this. I am building a comic book, an actual physical comic book issue, with
Oh
Tony
wow!
Donley, our artist. We have a lot of art already, but I just finished writing the outline for the book. It's going to be a 22-page book, and we're going to be building that while our film festival circuit continues. Hopefully in the next few months, and then I am doing my own distribution. So I've been fortunate enough to work on 7 different feature films. Vince and Hick being, I think, number 5. Every movie that I've ever worked on prior to Vince and Hick, and then there's a couple of movies that are in post production right now. So every film that I had done, the 4 movies I had done before Vince and Hick, had all gotten traditional distribution. Never saw a single cent. And like when I say traditional distribution, like again, we got some of the bigger names in the realm of distribution, and then some of the smaller, more indie whatnot.
Hmm.
It is so darn hard to market and sell an indie movie. Um, so by the time any money is made, the fees and all that stuff, it gets eaten up, and the filmmakers
Yeah.
themselves don't get a dime. So, bearing that in mind, a good friend of mine and a peer, Mike Cheslick, who did a film called Hundreds of Beavers. You may have heard Hundreds of Beavers, and if
Wonderful
you
movie.
haven't, yes,
Wonderful.
yeah. It completely reshaped the landscape of indie filmmaking, in my opinion, because of how much Mike embraced self distribution. So I talked to him about it and what his process was. And he essentially echoed a similar sentiment to me, which is that any film he's seen that's done distribution hasn't seen money. So what he did was he got international distribution because he was like, I would have no idea how to distribute this thing overseas. So he was very smart. He piecemealed his distribution internationally. And then domestically, he held on to the rights himself, hired a theatrical booker, uh, put his movie in a bunch of indie cinema chains across the United States. He went on tour with the film. And I'm sure people that are following the Hundreds of Beavers lore, they see, Ryland
Yeah.
and the lead actor dressed like a beaver and doing these like big slapstick live comedy shows before the screening. And it's like a total hoot. Like it's so cool what they've done. So that inspired me. And I was brainstorming with myself, like, okay, what's my version of Hundreds of Beavers? Because I don't have a bunch of silly, wacky beaver outfits to, run around and do these big
Yeah.
spectacle shows. So what is my superpower here? What's my lean? And honestly, what came to me was the comic book. And I was like, what I want to do is I want to build a companion comic book, which people I think will enjoy independently of the film as well. And what I want to do is I want to, similar to like video game DLC back in the day, if you would buy an Xbox game, PlayStation game, whatnot, what have you, you open the case and then inside is a unique one-time use barcode where you can redeem to get the DLC, whatever it is. I
Yeah.
want to do that with my film, where I can sell comic books, and on the inside there is a one-time use unique code that will redeem a virtual copy of the movie, and market it that way and go to comic book conventions, and the comic cons of the world, go to VHS swap meets and conventions, which are starting to really pop up as well. Just the physical
Hmm.
media of VHS has become such a huge phenomena again, which I'm excited about, and I love VHS myself. Um, Video game conventions, all again where nerds and geeks unite. That's where I want to target. That's where I want to take this movie on the road, and to have that comic book companion piece, I think will be really really unique, and I'm excited to see what I can do with that.
Yeah, I think you'll do great with that. Because those events, if you're doing something where you're not just taking the style, you're actually going out there making a comic book too. Because
Yeah,
there's so many comic book movies that just saying, okay, we're a comic book movie, we'll do a little bit here and there. But to say you're a comic book movie and to go ahead and carry it out, that's really inspired, I think.
yeah.
So, is there a life planned for it? Not just one Vince and Hick movie? Would you like to do more down the line?
Uh, the answer is not what I like to. The answer is I am going to. So part two
Ah,
is already
okay.
being written.
Fun.
Um, the goal is to be doing one of these movies once every 7 or 8 years. Um, Again, I have no plans of walking in front of a van, so I need to figure out, when the time comes, how that money's going to come.
Yes.
However, 100%, there is at the end of our credits, very, very specifically, and this is a Marvel nod, of course. It says Vince and Hick will return, and we 100% will.
But yeah, it's lovely to hear about Vincent Hick in one of these movies on the indie circuit, which is really finding a space for itself.
Hmm.
Because what was the story a few years ago? It was the Oscars, wasn't it? Was it Sean Baker said with his movie, he's not really made a lot of money, and it was the other one who won the Best Picture for The Brutalist said he hasn't made any money for his movie.
Yep, yep, which is crazy to hear stories like that, but it is
And
the
for you to sort of stack the deck in your favour, it's shown shown a new life to really, and a new corner to turn for indie movies, I think. And that's really inspirational too, I think.
I appreciate that. Yeah, and then the last thing I'll plug too is during quarantine and COVID, I started doing all these sketches and comedy bits on TikTok, and I started getting really popular on TikTok while I was doing these shorts for Vince and Hick. And so I built this audience on TikTok and on YouTube. YouTube is where people can find the shorts of the Misadventures of Vince and Hick. So if you're watching this and you want to see the origin of it all and the movie hasn't been released yet, then my YouTube channel, Heston Horwin, you'll just type it in TikTok or YouTube. You'll be able to find me and follow the trajectory of the Misadventures of Vince and Hick. So that audience that I built is also going to be like my primary target when I release this movie, because those are the people that like my nerdy comedy idiotic side. So I think that they'll be pleasantly surprised with this movie.
Oh, yes, absolutely. So check out Vincent Hick, the Misadventures of Vincent Hick, if it's playing near you, if it's a comic book event, or a video game convention, whatever it might be, and you see Vincent Hick, do check it out, because it's just a delightful indie crime romp that you just don't see many of anymore. And
Really
thank you for making that itch happen. you know,
It's my absolute pleasure. It was a dream of mine to bring the movies that I grew up loving as a kid back on the silver screen.
yes. But until next time, thank you for watching this on the Geek Show, and please don't forget to like and subscribe and check out whatever video comes next down the pipeline. So thank you, and see you in the next one.
Bye, guys.